Greetings and welcome to part 2 of our walkthrough for the Capture the Flag exercise known as Derp and Stink. And when we left off, we were working with the John the Ripper utility to crack a couple of hash passwords, and we should have those by now. And the passwords, of course, were for the admin account, admin, and then for Stinky, or Uncle Stinky, it was Wedgie57. So we now have a good username and password to get us up inside of the WordPress site for the user Stinky. Now, to do this, we have to get over to the WordPress admin login page. So what I've done here is I've gone over to this derpandstink.local/weblog/wp-admin. That is the login for the WordPress administration site. Alright, so we're already there. I've typed in Uncle Stinky and the password Wedgie57. So let's go ahead and attempt to log in. And we have logged in. Now, we have control of this particular WordPress site, but we've already exported it, so we don't have to do much up here. But if we scroll down a little bit and look inside of the drafts, we get our next key. So we're done with the WordPress site. We can close that out. We're going to return over here to our Metapreter prompt. So we know now that we cannot access either of the mrderp or the Stinky directories. So what we're going to do is we're going to elevate this Metapreter prompt, and we're going to start the process by typing in shell, and that's going to change our prompt over just a little bit. And then we're going to elevate this over to a bash prompt by using that little bit of Python code that we've used in the past. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that on in there like so. I'm going to hit enter, and you'll notice that we now have a bash prompt. Now I'm still logged on as the www-data user. It's very limited, but I'm now going to change users over to Stinky because we have Stinky's password, so now I can log on. Using the su command, I'm going to change on over to the user Stinky. It wants Stinky's password, which we know to be Wedgie57. Now you'll notice that my prompt changes to let me know that I'm now logged on as Stinky. We now have to get busy and start enumerating everything inside of this user's profile. To do this, we're first going to list the contents, and you'll see that we have two directories, mrderp and Stinky. So we're going to start off with Stinky, and I'm going to do a cd over to the Stinky directory. Now from here, we're going to do another ls, and you'll notice we have a number of directories in here, starting with desktop, documents, downloads, and FTP. Working from left to right, we're going to enumerate all of these directories, and to do this, we're going to start off with the desktop. So I'm going to type in cd desktop, and now I'm going to do an ls, and we have a flag. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to see the contents of our flag here by doing a cat command. And we're just going to do it flag.text, just like that. And there's your hash for our third flag. I need to roll back one level, and now I'm going to go into the documents. So I'm going to type in cd space document. And again, I will list the content. And in here we have a derpissues.pcap file, which must be opened up with a Wireshark utility. So we're going to remember this, that this is located up inside of the documents, and if we need to, we'll come back and we'll get it. Let's roll back one level, and now we're going to go into the downloads directory, and it is empty. So let's take a look at that FTP directory and see what's in there. So we're going to do a cd space roll back one level, and let's get into the FTP directory, and let's list the contents. And we have files, so let's do a cd, let's go into files. Now let's list the contents, and we have networking logs, ssh, test.txt, and the temp directory. Again, working from left to right, we need to enumerate everything that's inside of this user's profile. So let's get busy and start off with the network-logs directory. And I'm now going to do a ls, and we have a derpissues.txt. So let's go ahead and cat that out. and we had a message here. And if we read this, we can get some information about the PCAP file being of interest to us, because if we get inside of it, we're probably going to be able to find MR Derp's password, and that's going to allow us to use his account. Alright, so let's roll back one more time, and let's get into the SSH folder. And we're going to start looking at the contents. And what we have here are 7 SSH folders. So we're just going to start going through them until we get to the last one. And the last one will present us with a key.txt. So I got to the last SSH folder, and inside of this folder there is a key.txt. We're going to go ahead and cat this out. And this is Stinky's private key for his SSH login. So we're going to go ahead and manipulate this so that we can get access to the server using SSH, using Stinky's account. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to copy everything all the way down. We're going to right click, we're going to copy. We're now going to open up a terminal by right clicking and going to new window. Move this on over just a little bit. Again, we're going to change directories on over to our working folder. Once we're up inside of our working folder, we're going to create a new text file. And I'm just going to go ahead and use Nano as my text editor and type in Nano, and I'm going to type in stinky.key, just like that. I've now got a clean text file, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to paste the contents of that key into here. I'm now going to do a Control X, and I'm going to type in Y for yes, and I'm going to hit enter. And if we do an LS and show the contents of our working directory, you'll see that we now have a stinky.key. The next thing we have to do is change the permissions on the stinky.key file. So I've typed in chmod or chmod space 400 space the name of the file that I want to change these permissions on, which is stinky.key. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. It comes back letting me know that the command completed successfully. We're now ready to move on with attempting to log on to the server using SSH using Stinky's private key that we copied over to our working folder. So I've typed in SSH space dash small letter I, and I'm telling it to use the stinky.key file to authenticate the user Stinky at 192.168.0.26, which is the IP address for the target. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it tells me that, let's see, are you sure you want to continue connecting? I'll say yes, and we are in. And we are now able to use a more stable logon, which is the SSH, to continue on with trying to exploit this target. So even though we are logged on to the server using SSH, we don't know what the level of permission Stinky has. To find this out, we're going to use the su command space dash small letter L. And let's see what's going on with his permissions. And his password, and let's see what he has. Authentication failure. That means that he's not authorized to do a whole lot. So Stinky is not authorized to use the su command is what it's telling us. So we're going to have to figure out how we can escalate and improve his permissions, or at least improve our access. Our next move is to copy over the PCAP file to our host machine. To do this, I'm going to copy and paste the following command in, scp space dash I, stinky.key, stinky at 192.168.0.26. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit enter and see what happens. And the file was copied over to my temp directory. So now I got to go up and get it. So I'm going to go up in here inside of my other locations, computer, there's my temp folder, and there's my derp issues. Now I'm going to right click on this. I'm just going to move this on over to my working directory, and we'll just say select, and it's moved. Now I can go ahead and open this up, and you'll see that I have the derpissues.pcap file in here. Now once we have this PCAP file copied over correctly, we're going to right click on it, and we're going to say open with Wireshark. Once you have the PCAP file opened up inside of Wireshark, you're going to scroll on down to come to entry 5598. You're going to highlight that, you're going to right click, and then you're going to select follow TCP stream. And in here you will be able to find the password for MRDERP. And there it is right there. So there's the password for MRDERP, and now we're going to log on as MRDERP, and we're going to see what permissions he has. We can go ahead and close out the Wireshark. We don't need that anymore. So now that we have MRDERP's password, we can log on as MRDERP. So let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to go over here to my SSH, and I'm going to type in SU MRDERP, and watch the password. I'm going to type that big long password in there. Alright, now I'm logged on as MRDERP. Alright, so let's do a CD back to his root folder. And now we need to find out exactly what permissions he has. To do this, we're going to type in sudo space dash small letter L. And again, it wants that password for MRDERP. Again, I'm going to right click and paste it on in there. And we get this information here that our user can run any command that is contained within the directory /home /MRDERP /binaries and starts with the string derby. So if we run a sudo command anywhere inside of this binaries folder with a file that has the name derby, then we will be able to execute whatever root commands we want to execute. So this binaries folder has to be up inside of the MRDERP directory, up inside of his home folder. So we're going to go there. We're going to do a CD space /home /MRDERP, hit enter, and we're already there. So now we're going to make a directory called binaries. So I'm going to go ahead and right click in here and paste that. So now we're going to make that directory called binaries that's going to be up here inside of this home directory, inside of the subfolder MRDERP. Go ahead and hit enter. The file already exists. Well, it does exist because I've already done this walkthrough about 4 times. So that's already a given. Alright, so I've already got the directory up there for the binaries. Now we have to do this sh file, this script, and it's called derby.sh. Alright, and then we're going to change the permissions on over so that we could run this, and we did it. Alright, so I'm now going to go in and I'm going to type in sudo space period /binaries /derpy.sh, hit enter, and you saw my prompt change over to the root. Now I'm going to do another cd /root, and we're now inside of that folder. And if I do an ls to show the contents, we have desktops, documents, and downloads. And again, we still have to enumerate. We're not done there yet. Alright, so now let's do an ls, look at the permissions here, and let's do a small letter L and get the permissions for these 3 different directories. Alright, so now we're going to change directory on over to the desktop, and we're going to do an ls, and now we have our final flag. Alright, so I can go ahead and cat this out, and there's the congratulatory message, and of course we get that hash for the flag. Of all the capture the flag exercises I've done recently, this one here was probably the most interesting. It had a lot of twists and turns in it, and I learned a few things, so that was good. And that concludes this short video presentation on capture the flag and the walkthrough we did for derp and stink. If you have any questions or concerns about the information or the content of this exercise, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact your instructor, and I'll see you in my next video. Greetings and welcome to this short video presentation on part 1 of Capture the Flag walkthrough for Stapler. This CTF is rated as beginner to intermediate, and this OVA file for the Stapler CTF is available from the Vuln Hub download site. Though the OVA file is designed to work with either VMware or VirtualBox, I found that it works best with just VirtualBox. To ensure that you have network connectivity between your Kali machine and your target, I recommend setting the network adapters to bridge. For the sake of organization, I also recommend that you create a directory on your desktop and name it Stapler. I also recommend that you run all your commands inside of the directory Stapler and save all your downloads to the same location. As with every capture the flag or pen test, we begin by network enumeration. There's nothing wrong with discovering your network IP using the ifconfig command from your Kali machine. This makes the enumeration process all that much easier. We begin the enumeration process by using the net discovery utility --r with our network IP /24. And I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And in just a moment it will come up and it will show us all the discovered devices on this network. My target IP is going to be 192.168.0.29. Now this is my target IP, of course yours will differ. Now that we have discovered the IP address of our target, we now can enumerate the device for any open ports or services using Nmap. So you see that I've typed in Nmap space and I've typed in a bunch of switches. All this is available up inside of the lab. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and in just a moment my scan results will come back. Our scan results are complete, and we uncovered quite a few valuable and possibly vulnerable ports that might be open, including FTP, NetBIOS with some SMB shares, MySQL, and port 12380 running a Apache web server. We see that FTP running on port 21 is configured for anonymous logon. That's going to be our low-hanging fruit, so we're going to go after that first. So from my terminal, I've gone ahead and accessed my target using FTP, and I have logged on using the name anonymous and the password anonymous, and I have been successfully logged on. So we can go ahead and do an ls to list whatever might be available here at this level. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and we see we have one file called note. We're going to go ahead and copy note over to our Stapler directory and take a look at that later. So I've gone ahead and typed in the syntax get note. Now since we are working inside of the Stapler directory, everything that we save from our terminal will go directly to that Stapler directory. Again, that's one of the benefits of good organization. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it says that the transfer was complete. At the FTP prompt, we can go ahead and type in exit. That brings us back to our Stapler prompt, and now we can do a cat to see the contents of that note. So I've typed in cat space note, and it says, Ellie, make sure you update the payload information. Leave it in your FTP account once you are done. Signed, John. So what we got here is a couple of usernames. Not much else can be useful, but we do have a couple of usernames. Our next enumerating attempt will be for the SSH. So I've typed in SSH, and I'm going to try to log on as root. So I've typed in root at my IP address, and we're going to go ahead and hit enter and see what happens here. And it says the authenticity of the host, my IP address, can't be established. Are you sure you want to continue connecting? Yes or no? I'll type in yes, hit enter, and warning, permanently added the IP address to the list of known hosts. Now we've got another message, and we have another user. Barry, don't forget to put a message here. And then it wants my password, which I don't know what it is. So we're just going to go ahead and type in password, see what happens, and connection was closed. Okay, so not much going on here either, but we did get another username. So during our Nmap scan, we learned about some SMB shares, and now we're going to try to access those using the SMB client. So I've typed in SMB client space -L my IP address, and now I'm going to hit enter, and let's see what pops up here. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in root, and we get some shares. Interesting. Let's see what we got here. We have two active shares. One is Kathy, and the other one is the temp directory. And we have a message. We have a comment that says, Fred, what are you doing here? Which leads me to believe that Fred has access to Kathy's share. So we can attempt to connect to Kathy's share using the user Fred. We'll see how that works. So again, I've typed in the SMB client syntax, space, // Fred, which is the user, / Kathy, which is the share, and then I'm saying the dash capital I, and I want to connect over to 192.168.0.29 space dash capital N. Let's go ahead and hit enter and see what happens here. So I'm in, and let's take a look at what's inside here by doing an ls. So inside of Kathy's directory we have two more subdirectories. One is Kathy_stuff and the other one is the backup directory. Let's go ahead and enumerate Kathy's stuff by changing directory on over to that particular folder. So at that SMB prompt I've typed in cd change directory space Kathy_stuff. Go ahead and hit enter. And we're now in there, so let's go ahead and do an ls and list the contents. Let's see what we have here. Kathy's_stuff directory shows that we have a text file called to-do-list. So we're going to go ahead and get that and copy it on over to our stapler directory, and then we're going to take a look at the contents. So at the SMB prompt I've typed in get space the file we want to capture, which is the to-do-list.txt. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it lets me know that that file was successfully copied over to our stapler directory. We need to do the same with the backup directory, so we're going to change directory on over to there. We'll type in cd backup. So I'm now inside of the backup directory up inside of Kathy's _stuff folder, and we see that we have two files that we can actually get a hold of and copy over to our stapler directory. So let's use the get command, and let's get both of these files and save them over to our stapler folder. Once I've copied those two files over to my stapler location, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing, and this time I'm going to go into the temp folder. So I'm going to do an ls, and we see that we have a ls file that is listed inside of the temp folder. So we're going to go ahead and copy that on over. So I'm now ready to go ahead and copy over the ls file, and I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and that file has been copied over to my stapler directory. We're done with the SMB share, so I can type in exit, hit enter. That brings me back to my prompt, put me back inside of the stapler folder. So now what I'm going to do is cat out a couple of those files and see what the contents are. We're going to begin with the to-do list. So I'm going to do a cat and get back over to the end, and I'll hit enter. And it says I'm making sure to back up anything important for Initech Kathy. We can go ahead and see what's inside of that ls file. So I've typed in cat space ls, and let's see what we got in here. But aside from the files and a couple of names, the information that remains proves to be rather useless, so let's move on. We're now ready to start taking a look at that Apache web server running up on port 12380. So let's go ahead and open up our browser, and let's take a look at what's going on over there. So I typed in the IP address of my target, and I've done a colon, and I've typed in the port that is running HTTP. Let's go ahead and see what's going on over here. I'm going to go ahead and just hit enter, and we bring up a web page. Alright, so we've got another user here by the name of Tim, but when we check out the page, there's not much else going on. And even if we look at the source, let's take a look at the source real quick. There might be something in here. But again, we don't have much information, and it's proving to be rather useless. So time to move on. Time to fire up Nikto. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my screen, and let's get ready to scan using Nikto for any misconfigurations that might be present. So at my terminal prompt, I've typed in Nikto space dash small letter H, my IP address, colon, and the port number that HTTP is running on. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And in just a moment, we'll get some good scan results. A worthwhile scan, as we were rewarded with 4 directories. We have the PHP myadmin page. We also have the blog page. And we have the admin 112233 page. And we also have a robots.txt file. So any attempt at accessing the directory brings up the home page, and that's only until we figure out that we've got to use HTTPS to access these locations. So let's see if these pages have anything to offer, and we're going to begin by opening up our browser again. And we're going to start off with the robots text file. So you see I've typed in https:// the IP address of my target, along with the port number that is running HTTPS or HTTP / the file that I want to access, or in this case the page. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and it says that your connection is not secure. That's fine. Click on the advanced button, scroll on down, add the exception, scroll on down a little bit more. Let's see if I can get over here to this thing. Here we go. And confirm the security exception. And there we are. Alright, so we're rewarded with a couple of different items up inside of this text file, and that is the admin 112233 and a blog. Let's see what this is about. The admin 112233 page looks promising, so we're going to go ahead and see what's happening on over there. And we're just going to go up here and get rid of this, delete that, and now we're going to copy and paste that new page we want to get access to. And we've almost been hooked. It looks like we get a warning that we need to make sure that we have Java disabled. Okay to that. Alright, thank you for that warning. So if someone had beef running a cross-site scripting exploit and they had used this page, when we clicked OK or we got into this page, we would have been hooked, and everything we were doing would have been sent back over to that beef, and they would be able to follow along with what we're doing here. But that's not the case. It's just a warning. Alright, so let's go ahead and back this off a little bit. And now we're going to go to the blog site. Okay, let's take a look at that real quick. So this is going to be blog. Let's see what's going on over here. So over here on the blog page, we get a few more usernames, and there is a login here, and if we click that, you're going to find out that we have been presented with the administration page for the WordPress site. Interesting. So we're going to go ahead and run a WP scan and see what we can gather from this. So we're going to do this WordPress scan, hoping to enumerate some users, some plugins, or some other vulnerabilities that might be present. So I've gone typing this command. This command is available up inside of the lab. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And in just a moment, we'll start getting some scan results. Now, this might take a little while, so do be patient. I should point out that we're going to have to run two WordPress scans. One with the U switch, which is looking for users, and then we'll have to do another AP switch, which is looking for the plugins. So right now we're doing the one for the users, and as soon as it completes, we'll take a look at what we got from that, and then we'll move on with scanning for the vulnerable plugins. So our WordPress scan, looking for users, came up with a nice list of 10, and we're going to keep this in mind. We're going to come back to this, and we're going to take a look at one of the users who is probably going to be the administrator because he's listed as number 1 there, and that would be John. Well, we also see that Ellie's in here, Barry's in here, and we got some other users that we know about, such as Kathy and Tim. So we're going to run the scan one more time looking for those vulnerable plugins, and this time I'm going to remove the U and I'm going to replace that with the AP switch. And we're going to go ahead and run this and see what comes up. And again, you got to be patient, and in just a moment we'll have our information that we need. See if we can exploit any of these vulnerable plugins that might be present. So as the WordPress scan starts to look for vulnerable plugins, it's first going to do a passive scan. If it doesn't find anything there, it's going to move on to the intense scan. And you can see this is what's going on down at the bottom of my terminal. Our scan has turned up 4 plugins, and we see that the one that we're going to be taking a look at for a possible exploitation is going to be the advanced-video-embed-videos-or-playlist. Now, if we do some research on this, we find out that it is vulnerable. So we're going to use another tool up inside of my Kali called SearchSploit to see if we can find an exploit that we can run against this WordPress site. And let's see what happens when we do this. So I've opened up a new browser, I've typed in search exploit, and I've typed in what I'm looking for, which is the advanced video exploit. Now, interestingly enough, this is going to turn out to be a Python script, and we're going to have to build it, which is not that difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over here to our storage folder, in this case stapler, and we're going to create a text file, and we're going to name that text file 39646.py. And let's go ahead and get started with that. So I'm back over inside of my storage directory, Stabler, and now I'm going to go ahead and open up Nano, which is my text editor, and I'm going to create a file called 39646.py. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and that's going to give me a blank file to work with. Now we're going to open up a browser, and we're going to go get the syntax or the code that we need to place inside of this file that we just created. Here's the address for the code that we're going to need to copy and place inside of my new Nano text file, and it's up here on the GitHub. And this is the path, which is also available up inside of the lab. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. In just a moment, we're going to get this code. So what I want is the raw data. So I'm going to move this on over to the raw, and I'm going to put my mouse inside there, and I'm going to do a Control A, I'm going to do a Control C, copy this. I'm going to minimize my browser, come back on over here to my text editor, and I'm now going to right click, and I'm going to paste all this. So the part of this text or this Python code we have to change is for this URL right here. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to move on over here, and we're going to put in the IP address of our WordPress server. I'm using Nano as my text editor, but you're free to use any text editor you want. I'm now going to do a Control X, and I'm now going to type in Y for yes, and the file has been saved over to my stapler location. So that's going to conclude part 1 for the stapler walkthrough. Now in part 2 we'll pick up right here where we left off, and I'll see you then. Greetings and welcome to part 2 of our video walkthrough for the Capture the Flag stapler. Using the IP address of the WordPress site that we injected into the script, this script is going to go to the WordPress site. It's going to generate a JPEG, which we'll later download, that will contain all the base settings for the WordPress site to include any MySQL account information. Before we get too far along, it's always a good idea to just double check your work. So let's do a cat and check the contents of this Python script to make sure that everything's correct. And what we want to look at is that URL and make sure that this is the actual IP address of the WordPress that is running on our target and that the path is correct. To run a Python script, we just type in Python followed by the script, and we're now ready to hit enter. And in just a moment it should come back with the information. And the terminal comes back to the prompt letting us know that the script ran successfully. Our next step is to visit the contents and the uploads directory for the WordPress site. To do this, we're going to open up a browser. Again, we'll need to add an exception. So we're going to go to Advanced, scroll on down, add the exception, and we're going to confirm the security exception, and now we're into the directory. Since this is my third validation of this particular capture the flag exercise, I'm going to have more than just one JPEG. So this is the JPEG that we just created up here, and now your number for the JPEG that you create is going to be different than any of these. But you will have a JPEG up here if the script had the right IP address for your WordPress site. To make life easier, we can just right click on the JPEG and we can copy the link location. You can go ahead and minimize your Firefox, and now we can just bring up a text editor, any text editor, and we can copy and we can paste that location of that particular JPEG into the text file. Using this information, we're going to go ahead and create a wget command that's going to pull down the JPEG and save it to our stapler location. So we see what the rest of this wget command looks like. It's just wget space dash dash no dash check dash certificate followed by the path to that JPEG. Inside the text editor, we place our cursor, we do a Control A, do a Control C, minimize your text editor, come on back to your terminal, right click, and then you paste. Once you confirm that everything is typed in correctly, go ahead and just hit enter, and you'll see that you get a positive result down here at the bottom where you see that the JPEG was copied over with 100% success rate. We're now ready to look at the contents of this JPEG, so let's go ahead and do an ls, see what the contents are up here, and we see that the JPEG is waiting for us right here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and what I'm going to do now is just cat it out to my terminal. Paste that in there, hit enter, and now we have the information that was gathered from our WordPress site for all the MySQL information that we need to be able to log on as an administrator. We have now been able to enumerate the root credentials for the MySQL. Now this is going to allow us to get some more information so we can move further along with trying to get into the WordPress site. We do have a password, and that is right here. So we're going to go ahead and use root as our user and this password to gain access to the MySQL database. We're now ready to access the MySQL database as root. To do this, I'm going to use the MySQL command space dash u switch space the name of the user I'm going to log on as, which is root, dash p, which is for the password, and then I'm going to use a dash h followed by the IP address of the WordPress site that is running the MySQL. I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And now once that password for the MySQL database, so I've already copied it, I'm going to paste it, I'm going to hit enter, and it comes up letting me know that we have successfully logged on to the MySQL database. We need to dig around for some information about WordPress, so let's start off with showing databases. I've typed in show databases and I hit enter, and I have to remember to place that semicolon at the end. And there are our databases. We're concerned with that WordPress database, so I'm going to go ahead and open that up and see what it has to offer. So I've typed in use space WordPress semicolon. Hit enter. We're now inside of the WordPress database. Now we can get some more information. We're now inside of the WordPress database, so let's do a show tables and see what kind of information this database actually contains. We can now enumerate the WP_users table. So let's go ahead and expand that with a little bit more information. And to do this, we're going to type in describe space WP_users semicolon. I'm going to hit enter. And now if I make this full screen, and we get a nice formatted output, and it tells us some information that we're going to dig further into. So we want to start off with getting some user login information, and then we want to know about their password, and we're going to output that to our terminal as well. Let's see if this is going to work. For this next bit of information that I want to get from this particular database and this table, I've used a select command. So I've typed in select space user_login. I want to get this information from here. And I want to know if there's any user password information that can be associated with the WP_users. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. And here we have the users along with their hashed passwords. Now the way things work in databases and with administrators, usually the first name in the list is going to be the administrator. So we can assume, hopefully, that John is going to be the administrator, and if we can crack his hash, we can get his password for the login to the WordPress site. So let's see how we're going to do this. We're going to start off by copying this information from this terminal, and we're going to place this into a text document. So I'm going to open up a second terminal, and in this second terminal I'm going to type in nano space hash.txt. I'm going to hit enter, and we see that John is formatted now with his hashed password. All right, so this is what it has to look like up inside of the text file for this to work. We're going to use John the Ripper with a word list that's going to crack this hash, and we'll get John's password. And let's see how that works. So once you've created that text file for John's username and his hash password, go ahead and do a Control-X and get on out of there. If it asks you to save the information from the buffer, go ahead and say yes, and then just hit enter, and that'll close it out. So it just so happens that to launch John the Ripper, we can just type in John at the terminal, and then we're going to tell it that we want to use a word list and where this word list is located, and that we want it to run it against the text file we created called hash.txt. Here's a little bit of a caveat for you. If you have not used the rocku.txt word list before, you're going to have to go into the location and extract it from its archive. Use your File Explorer, open it up, scroll to the bottom and click on Other Locations, and we're going to go to Computer, and now we're going to go to the USR folder, and we're going to go into the Share, and then we're going to scroll on down to the word list. Inside the Share folder, you're going to go to Word List. From there, you're going to find the rocku.txt.gz archive, and then you can just extract that. Just right-click on it, say Extract here. When you're done, you'll have a rocku.txt file. With everything in place, we're now ready to go ahead and crack that hash for the username John. And this would work a lot better if I was inside of the directory for the location of the hash.txt file. So let's go ahead and change directory back on over to my stapler and run that command one more time. Alright, now we're into the right directory where the hash.txt file is actually located. So once you have run John the Ripper against this word list and the hash.txt file, you're going to come up with the password for the user John. The password for user John in this case is incorrect. With our username and password in hand, we're now ready to attempt to log in to the WordPress site as administrator. So we're going to go ahead and visit that real quick. Now if you get lost and you can't find the login page, just backtrack on over to the blog site and scroll on down till you come to the login option, and then that'll take you over to the WordPress login. Let's go ahead and add this another exception. Alright, so I'm going to scroll on down here, say add exception. There we go. And we're ready to log into the WordPress site, and we're going to use the user John, and the password is incorrect. And we're now logged on to the dashboard for the WordPress site. Though we did get administrative access to the WordPress console, it's not going to prove to be of much use. So we're going to move on with another exploit. To get us the shell access that we need, we're going to use the infamous PHP reverse shell script. We'll upload the script using our terminal, and this is going to give us enough functionality, just enough, to brute force our way into the root access that we need. This particular script that we need to get is called the PHP-reverse shell, and it's located up here in a little site called pentestmonkey.net. So this address, this URL, is located up inside the lab file, or you can try to copy it here. And what I'm going to do now is we're going to go visit that site, and we're going to download this particular script. Alright, so we're up here, and this is the PHP reverse shell. It's well known. I've already used it on a couple of other capture the flags, and it's very good. So we're going to go ahead and use it again here. So this is the file you're going to download. So go ahead and just start the download, and you're going to save the file, and then just a moment it's going to download. You can open up your download folder. Once you've opened your download location, go to the directory to which it was saved. Now you can right click on this, that is to say the download. It is a archive, and you want to move it. So you're going to move it on over to where? Your stapler folder. So select your stapler directory and then go on up and click on the select button. That will move the script on over to your stapler location. Once we have that done, we can close out our browser, close out all the tabs. We don't need those anymore. And return to our terminal. Find that Stabler directory that's located on your desktop. Go ahead and open it up. Once you're inside of your Stabler directory, go ahead and find the download you just moved. You're just going to right click on it and you're going to select Extract Here. That brings up the contents of that particular archive that we just extracted, and it's called php-reverse-shell-1.0. Go ahead and open up that, and you're going to find a php reverse shell.php file. Go ahead and copy this, close that out, or just backtrack on over to your stapler. And you're going to right click inside of the root of your stapler folder and you're going to paste. Okay, so here's the file that we just copied over from this directory, and we got it inside of the root of our stapler location. We're now going to right click on this and we're going to select Open with Other Applications, and you're going to select any of the different text editors that you like to use. I'm just going to use one. Doesn't make any difference which one I use. You're going to scroll down inside of this script until you find the location that says change this. There's two of them. One is the IP address, and this is going to be your Kali IP address, not the WordPress. So make sure that you put in the IP address for your Kali machine. And then you're going to change the port, or you can leave it. I like using port 4444, but you can leave this, or you can put in any port number you want as long as it's not being in use. So we're going to go ahead and change this over to my IP address for my Kali machine because it's going to be the listener. So where it says $IP address equals, I have typed in the IP address for my Kali machine. And then where it says $port equals, that is the listening port. And we'll explain more of that in just a moment. Once you've got all this done, go up here and click on the Save button. And now you can close that out, and you can return to your desktop. So the next thing we want to do is create a listener using Netcat. So I've typed in netcat space -v space -n space -l space -p with the port that I want Netcat to listen on. Now once you have this command typed in, just hit enter, and it's going to begin listening on port 4444 or whatever port you told it to listen on. So leave that listener running, and we're going to open up another terminal. I'm going to right click on the terminal icon, select new window, and this time we're going to configure a wget command to push that PHP file on up to the WordPress site. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to type in wget space --no-check-certificate. This will stop it from not allowing us to upload because we can't verify the certificate for this particular location. This is the path we need to use to upload the PHP script to the WordPress site. Alright, we've already been up there one time and we've seen this JPEG. Well, we're going to go back up there and we're going to see that there's a reverse shell waiting for us. So we're going to go ahead and hit enter, and it's working. And when it gets done, we'll go back up and we'll check for that upload script. So here's our PHP file that we just uploaded. It's now present. Now here's a little trick. If you close out this website or you reboot, you're going to lose that connectivity. So just come back in here, double click on this PHP file, and that'll start the whole process of it communicating with your Netcat one more time. So once the script has been uploaded, the listener, that is to say our Netcat listener, will pick up the communication between the WordPress site and this particular terminal. And you'll know when this happens because you're going to get this readout here letting you know that it has picked up the communication between this terminal and the script. Now this is our terminal. It's limited access, so we're going to have to do some more work to get us in here. But that's going to have to be continued in part 3 of this video walkthrough. So I'll see you in part 3.